999ers risk their lives every day keeping us safe.
You're putting yourself out there to help other people at their most precious time of need.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
Their house is on fire and they're attacking us.
I was standing up with her hands around my throat.
These personal attacks on police, paramedics and firefighters are at an all-time high.
He's telling me, I'm going to kill your wife and I'm going to kill your family and I'm going to kill you.
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
How do you come to terms with knowing that you can't go and do the job that you love?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
We kept people safe, we put away the bad guys.
I'm not going to let some man ruin it for me. This is my future, this is what I enjoy doing.
Ready to face the next critical incident. Coming up, a moped chase ends in mayhem for Essex police.
One match, one lighter, one spark could result in us going up in flames.
An arresting officer falls onto a live train track.
I know within a millisecond that I'm going to go off the platform.
And an emergency medical technician struggles to get back on the ambulance after a vicious assault.
Put on the uniform and it would bring it back and I would just end up crying.
The 5th of May 2019 is a date which will remain firmly etched on the minds of Essex police in Basildon.
I don't think it's something you can ever put behind you. It's something I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and I'm sure it's the same for my colleagues.
Nothing could have prepared me mentally for what happened on the 5th of May.
I've never been involved in an incident so big as this.
I still find it unbelievable that somebody did that to us.
Canvey Island, Essex. A convoy of cars and motorbikes have gathered at an industrial estate in memory of the death of a friend. Police are monitoring the event closely.
By about 10:10, we started to get reports of individuals driving dangerously on the pavements and through the car parks, pulling wheelies, doing donuts on motorcycles, which is extremely dangerous. As the commander, I just kept a watchful eye. I had a helicopter above as well. This was quite a large gathering of people, and we didn't quite know how things were going to pan out. We wanted to have good visual control.
The police notice that one person is riding a bike dangerously.
This individual stuck out in the crowd. There weren't many people actively goading the police, but his behaviour on the bike had not only been reckless enough to draw our attention, but it continued to be reckless and deliberately antagonistic. And he sped off up the road, up the wrong way, and made a break for it. And that's what started the police response in seeking to apprehend this guy. My priority at all points was to minimise risks to the public.
Once you've got the helicopter up, we've got a massive advantage over them. So it was just a case of we were just watching it and monitoring it, waiting to see what would happen and hoping it would come to a safe conclusion. But then obviously the longer and longer it went on, we kind of realised, oh, this isn't going to end quickly.
There's nothing good about driving through an underpass at speed where vehicles don't go, it's only pedestrians. We followed him. He knew the helicopter was above him. You don't get away from the police that easy.
After an 8-mile pursuit, the police have him cornered.
And this time the plan was very clear. He doesn't leave this location other than a police van.
But now a crowd of 20 to 30 people have gathered around the rider.
The crowd were very hostile towards the police. You could hear them sort of like blocking him off, not wanting the moped rider to be arrested, as you can expect.
Chief Inspector Baldwin decides to move in slowly and arrest the offender.
It was just a case of making sure he had nowhere to hide. He was in the open, and I had enough officers to put a ring of steel around him and then move in.
The moped rider then revs the bike and throws it to the ground.
At that point, it went pretty much as good as can be. The chap on the bike kind of gave up almost immediately.
And then myself and other officers all moved in just to sort of try and give everyone the breathing space to work and make sure nothing escalated further.
And it was at that point that we started to have to manage the unexpected. You don't expect a woman in her 40s to emerge wielding a hammer above her head, screaming at officers and running around threatening officers, holding the hammer in her hand. Thankfully, 2 officers had spotted her, managed to get into a blind spot behind her, and as she went to lift the hammer, they snatched it out of the back of her hand and disarmed her, and at that point, 3 officers detained her.
Meanwhile, other officers rush in to help arrest the moped driver.
Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of theft of motor vehicle. You're not saying anything, but now it's meant to do not mention my question. So I'm trying to run court. Do you want cuffs? Do you want cuffs?
With the hammer-wielding woman and moped rider apprehended,
2 in custody.
officers still need to control the increasingly agitated crowd.
They were all shouting and swearing at us, telling us that what we were doing was wrong and that we didn't need to be doing it and all this kind of stuff. And we get that every day. We're used to people shouting and swearing and telling us that we're idiots. And then out the corner of my eye, I saw a gentleman appear from down one of the alleyways who was just sprinting at full speed towards where we were obviously trying to protect. So I ran across towards him to kind of intercept him and stop him going through. That kind of ended up in me and him colliding.
And the 2 of them ended up on the ground with the officer underneath.
I was pretty much at the bottom of the pile. You've got officers trying to get him off of me. He had his arms wrapped around my legs trying to just keep hold of me.
And then everything did go crazy.
Later, things spiral as another man joins the attack, using petrol as a weapon.
Going through my head was just panic.
Get him away!
I was hearing them shout, "Light them up."
Across the country, police forces honour courage and bravery with special awards and notices.
Please, if you call, that will try our best to get you some backup.
And James Stone picked up many over his career as a police officer.
Each one of them has got its own story and it's my history, it's part of my history. That one was myself and 3 other colleagues dealing with a firearms incident. It was reported of a male that was running amok up and down Macclesfield. He'd had a gas-powered ball-bearing gun and he'd been shooting people randomly with this gun. And as a result of that, there was a member of the public that was shot in the throat, and we managed to get hold of the male, and he's been arrested and subsequently went to prison for his actions. I'm proud of the commendations. You know, it's part of my duties as a police officer.
Both me and Jim grew up in a small town called Buxton. He then joined the job about 18 months after me, sort of reconnected from that point. As a police officer, he was just always proactive. He's not one of those that would sit in the station, always walking around the estates, always skulking about in alleyways. And that's always been common knowledge. The criminals used to hate Jim in Knutsford in particular.
But this determination to catch criminals would put James's life in danger. In 2018, he was working on an undercover drugs operation when he was informed that a suspected drug dealer was on a train heading to Knutsford.
So Jim being Jim, he decided to get the rest of his team together and said, look, we're going out and we'll see if we can find this lad.
It was the 26th of June 2018, and myself and 2 colleagues, and on that day we were in plain clothes and we were waiting for the suspect to arrive off the train. He was a local suspect. We had intelligence that he was dealing drugs to school children on the train and at the train station. So one of my colleagues was by the steps. Another colleague was beyond me by the exit point. I immediately recognised the suspect before he got off the train. As he's stepped onto the platform, we've seen that he's turned left, so we've assumed that's the way he's going to go. He's onto Adams Hill. As I've gone up behind the suspect, I can smell cannabis. I'm absolutely certain that this male suspect has got drugs in his backpack. I've taken hold of him, identified myself as a police officer. I know the suspect's name. I've had previous dealings with this male, so I've shouted his name and told him it was the police. And at that point, he's turned round and started to struggle with me. And during the struggle, we've got closer to the edge of the platform. And as he's spun round, he's brought his arm up. It's caused me to lose my balance. And because I'm so close to the platform, the edge of the platform, I've nowhere else to go. And I know within a millisecond that I'm going to go off the platform. I didn't even have time to brace myself. I've just gone straight off. I've dropped approximately 5 foot. I landed on the train track, but both feet had landed on the steel, but my legs were straight, unfortunately. And that's when I sustained the injury. My femur had smashed through the top of my tibia and shattered it. I couldn't understand what had happened to the knee. As I'm acutely aware that I'm on a live train track.
You're not going to lie on a train track, are you? When there's people on the platform, so clearly there's a train expected at any point.
But at that point, I'm aware that the suspect has ran off, and I know my colleague has chased after him.
Jim being Jim, he doesn't just let it go at that, you know what I mean? He's just fallen off a high platform. He's straight back onto his feet, jumps back up onto the platform, and he's chasing after the lad.
I've only managed to probably run about 5 or 6 feet, and then I've obviously the pain has kicked in. I've had my radio with me, and I've shouted up the control room and told them what had happened, and I asked for an ambulance.
James's colleagues chase a suspect and manage to catch up with him minutes later.
And I know from listening on the radio that when he was detained, there was no drugs found on his possession, and to this day I believe that he's managed to pass those drugs on to somebody else.
An ambulance rushed James straight to A&E.
Obviously at that point I'm in quite a lot of pain now with the leg. In fact, it's the worst pain I've ever experienced. I had an X-ray. I was told that they thought it was just what's called a simple transverse fracture across the top of the shin. So I was thinking, that's great, you know, because it's not a long-term significant injury, and I'll be back on my feet in no time.
But the pain was unbearable, and a CT scan revealed James's injury was much worse than doctors had realised.
I went to see the consultant, and it was then we realised just how significant the injury was. And his words to me then was that I couldn't allow you to go home. We need to prep you for surgery, and you're going to have surgery tomorrow. So at that point, you could have knocked me over with a feather. You know, I wasn't expecting that. I had a large plate put into the leg and 9 pins just to fix the damage.
James's injury left him immobile and in a brace for 4 months.
Initially, you're just thinking, well, it's a physical injury, he'll have an operation, he'll get better. he'd be come back to work. And then gradually, as the operations take place, he has one, then he has another, he becomes to realise that this is a lot more serious.
I'd been told and left in no uncertain terms by the consultants just how significant the injury was, and the impact it would have on me later on in life and the restrictions. So that was very hard to deal with, extremely hard, especially when you've been so active.
And as soon as the doctors mention life-changing, you know then, you know what I mean, that's a different ball game then.
I love mountains, I love hill walking, and I would every year go to Scotland with a couple of friends of mine. I liked the adventure side of things. I was confined to here, confined to a sofa for quite a few months really, rehabilitating and just waiting for the swelling to go down. So this is it, this is my little space. I'm getting cabin fever for a few months.
After months of being unable to move, James created his own gym in a room upstairs.
In the early days, it was ideal because I couldn't drive and I couldn't get to the gym, but at least I had a little bit of a ready-made gym, if you like.
But although James's injury had improved, he would never go back to frontline policing.
Because of the level of the injury, I wasn't able to perform the duties of a police constable. And as a result of that, the decision was to medically retire me on that basis. It's extremely upsetting in that I'm no longer doing something that I had done for 21 years with the constabulary and thoroughly loved every day of it.
Somebody who's been frontline all his life, how do you come to terms with that, knowing that you can't go and do the job that you love?
The long-term prognosis for James's leg is still uncertain, but he's determined to keep on pushing himself to get the best improvement he can. And today, for the first time in 14 months, James is strong enough to go back to the gym.
I've had the okay from the physio to say, yeah, you're at a point now when you can start doing some light exercises and start building it up. So, yeah, fantastic. It's great to come back into the gym again. I've missed being in this kind of environment, and it's sore, but it's good pain.
It's 3 months later, and James has seen a vast improvement. Back walking unaided, he's now able to enjoy long walks with his friend Keith.
To be out walking with Jim, it's unbelievable after such a short span of time. It's just joy to see it, really, and what's that be like from a friend who's seen him go through the whole thing over a 17-month period to see him come through to the other end. Yeah, it was fantastic. But he'll push himself, and he'll keep pushing himself, because that's the type of person he is, and that'll make him stronger going forward. It's inspirational.
I attribute a positive mindset to the support I had from, you know, Keith and other friends and colleagues.
I just want him to feel that he's wanted, needed, and, you know what I mean, he's still loved by not only his friends out of the job, but, you know what I mean, colleagues that are in the job that thought a heck of a lot about it.
And James hasn't left policing behind. He's now studying to become a lecturer, so he can help the next generation of emergency service workers, including police officers.
For me, the dream job would be to be back into education and enable me to impart some of my knowledge and experience that I've gained from the military and the police service. That's what I want to do. I won't give up. Got to keep moving forward.
New challenges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's all about.
Yeah.
Jim's one of those that will succeed at everything he does. He's a winner, and he doesn't like to be beaten at anything.
I'll get some tissues in a minute.
Still to come, Police in Essex fear for their lives when a violent criminal sprays them with petrol.
I heard the emergency assistance call being put up and my heart just sank.
And support from family and friends, along with a passion for gardening, help an emergency medical technician recover from a nasty assault.
It just makes you feel a lot calmer. There's a sense of the future, I think, about it.
Even in their vehicles, police can still be vulnerable to attacks, as this clip taken from a Merseyside police car shows. A Volvo estate is stopped by traffic patrols in Kirby. The vehicle stops, but these criminals don't want to cooperate. The driver and front seat passenger jump out and throw bricks at the windscreen of the police car, badly damaging the windscreen and showering the officers in glass. The Volvo makes off at speed and the police give chase. The driver is desperate to get away, driving recklessly and putting the public in grave danger. The Volvo is pursued around the Kirby area, but is eventually lost on the M57. But these violent individuals don't get away that easily. Following extensive inquiries, the offenders are identified, arrested and charged. Both offenders pleaded guilty. The driver was convicted of affray, dangerous driving and disqualified driving. He was sentenced to 2 years and 9 months in prison. The passenger was convicted of affray and separate offences and was sentenced to 5 years and 6 months in prison. In Essex, police have chased a dangerous driver on a moped into a local estate.
Right, you're under arrest. That's supposed to theft of my vehicle.
They've arrested 2 people and are struggling with a third when things take an even darker turn.
It was while we were trying to get control of this gentleman who had run out of the middle of nowhere that this other chap has appeared with the watering can.
A man carrying a large watering can sprints over and throws the liquid over the faces of nearby officers. PC Cuts steps in to fend off the attacker.
I didn't know what was in the watering can. It could have been anything. Initially, my first thoughts were it was probably acid. But sort of as I got nearer, I could smell like this petrol. So I've sort of fumbled around to get my baton out, but once I've eventually got it, so I've put it behind my head and then just struck him, like in line with our training. So it's not just a random act of sort of violence, it's a controlled measure that we're taught to use to sort of get people away from us and create a safe distance.
It wasn't until the smell kind of hit us that everyone realised what that actually was.
Initially it just felt like stinging. You could feel like tingling sort of all down my front where the petrol had gone.
And then obviously you've got people shouting petrol, petrol. Because obviously we had officers with taser there. There's obviously the consideration for the tasers could spark and ignite the petrol. The 8 of us were now covered in petrol. We still had this chap on the floor that we needed to restrain. We still had a crowd that needed to be kind of controlled. And obviously we still had the chap who had just poured petrol on us. We didn't know where he was or if he was now going to try and set us on fire.
One match, one lighter, one spark could result in us going up in flames and being disfigured for life or possibly even dead.
We could hear the crowd saying all sorts of things, like saying who's got matches, who's got a lighter, set them on fire.
Going through my head was just panic because there were people smoking around us, taser officers behind us.
I was hearing them shout, light them up. I don't know how we didn't just cut and run. But then that's not the way we're wired. We all stuck together. And there's something running in the core of us that says, you don't run away from the danger, you run towards it.
Broken 8, we need an ambulance here for the officers that have had petrol thrown in their face.
The team need backup urgently. An officer presses their emergency button.
When that red button gets pressed, anybody and everybody on any channel, any serving police officer on duty at that time gets a notification that there's an officer in trouble. Well, there were quite a few of us in trouble at that point.
Detective Constable Natalie Backhouse is in her office when she gets the call.
I heard the emergency assistance call being put up, and I can't recall his exact words, but it was something similar to, just get everybody here. And hearing those words, my heart just sank.
We needed the team around us to make decisions for us at that point, because we'd been taken to a place where we'd never had that done to us before.
Everybody in the office just bundled into the car. We drove there quick as we could.
There was noise, there was activity, there was banging, crashing. We were on the top of a car, people were on the ground, people were in pain. There was a cacophony of sound which was just very immediate, with the constant sound of the helicopter overhead.
Backup officers arrive at the scene.
It's something that no one's ever, well, I'd certainly never experienced before or heard of before, but everybody kind of just knew what to do straight away. Obviously, the guys who had been covered in it the worst, who got it in their eyes and their mouths, who had fallen to the ground, officers straight away went over to them, helped them up and just took them out of the situation and started giving them first aid.
Get him away!
We were helping some across who'd got it all in their eyes, who sounded like they just couldn't see anything. And their faces were red, their eyes were just stinging.
We had members of the public coming out, offering saucepans and kettles full of water, helping them rinse their faces off and stuff like that.
I immediately started washing off my arms, which were burning at that point. My head was burning and down the back of my shirt. So at that point, I basically just got a bucket of water poured over my head to try and to wash off the worst of it.
When we got there, there was officers everywhere, emergency services staff everywhere.
Fire crew turned up and they obviously washed us down with their hoses and stuff after the members of the public had kind of given us initial first aid. The ambulance crews turned up and checked us over. But all the while all that was going on, you've still got the crowd there who are still obviously causing issues.
At any point, it felt like it could flare up all over again. Something could just set it off again.
Later, as more backup officers arrive, the situation is brought under control.
It was very reassuring to see about 90-odd officers turn up to help us.
Ray O'Malley has been an emergency medical technician for 13 years.
When I first started, I thought I'd be running across fields, bandaging people up. The jobs are just a matter of, say, sorting things out for somebody, almost being a social worker, sorting out various levels of care, making sure that they have got the various things in place that they're needing, especially the elderly. Yeah.
And Ray has a lot of personal experience with the elderly.
So this is my mum, and she's come to live with us for a few weeks after being in hospital for a while, just for a little bit of recuperation, haven't you?
Yes.
And just to annoy somebody.
Yes.
A large majority of our calls encapsulate the older generation. I think the average age for our patient is probably about 80. But when Mum fell, one of the times, the second time, you was on the floor for 10 hours, weren't you?
I was in the bathroom, and I was there till my son came home.
That's a long time. A large majority of our calls are for people who have fallen, and we get sent to the care homes or their own homes. Looking after you and seeing all the things we have to put in place for you helps me when I go out to patients.
Yes.
Ray loves being able to help people in her job. So when a call came to take a patient with mental health issues to hospital, she was happy to oblige.
So we arrived. There was no reason for me to think it would be any different than any other job, really. It went into the patient's home, and the home seemed quite tidy as well. There wasn't anything that would ring alarm bells for me. Patients' bags were packed, so we all walked out. The patient walked quite willingly, got on the ambulance without any problem, and then we set off. Most of the way was without incident. We chatted, and I felt I was putting her at her ease. And then at some point in the conversation, she became just very slightly more agitated and said, "My phone charger, have I got my phone charger?"
All of a sudden, the patient was out of her seat.
And I don't really even remember how it happened, but she had undone her seatbelt unbeknown to me, and she was now more or less on top of me with her hands around my neck. But I know that I was standing up. I was standing up with her hands around my throat. And I just remember thinking, I really need to press the emergency button on my radio, but I couldn't let go of her hands because they were around my throat. And she said to me, "You're not so nice now, are you?" Which really hurt. And at this stage, I was actually on the floor in the rear of the ambulance. And I remember thinking that the door is going to fly open behind me, and I'm going to end up crushed under the wheels with this person on top of me. And I can remember the door there did fly open. But we were actually stationary at this point.
Luckily for Ray, the police who had been at the patient's house were following behind the ambulance.
The policeman that was travelling behind had seen the blue lights that my colleague had put on. He grabbed her. I fell out the back of the ambulance. And then a lot of police arrived, and they all jumped in the rear of the vehicle. I couldn't breathe, so I was hyperventilating. So I was just breathing and breathing and breathing, and half staggering down the road. The next step was to actually transport her still to hospital. And all I can remember is thinking, I cannot get in the back of the ambulance, and I cannot see this woman again.
Both Ray and her attacker were taken to hospital. Fortunately, Ray hadn't sustained any physical injuries. But the attack had a huge impact on Ray and left her unable to face work for 3 months.
For a while, I would have nightmares. I would dream that it was happening. I had trouble in confined spaces. I was very reluctant to go inside lifts. And I think this was all to do with the fact that I perhaps saw the ambulance as a confined space that I couldn't get out of.
Due to her mental illness, no charges were brought against the attacker.
It was just really, really hard to go back, and I couldn't put on the uniform without crying.
She did seem very upset. After the incident, there were a few times when you could actually see that she wasn't happy in coming into work. And it turns out it wasn't.
I didn't feel confident in my ability to talk to people anymore. I had to go to a therapist and pretty much relive it and talk it over.
As well as therapy, Ray found gardening a great healer during her time off.
As time passes, you don't think about things that have happened, and I think it just makes you feel a lot calmer. And you know that when you plant things, they're going to be bigger, they're going to have grown. There's a sense of the future, I think, about it. Definitely moving forward. I think of it less and less. That's the big change, I think. I think about it less and less. I don't feel worried about putting my uniform on. I don't feel worried about going into work. And there's so many lovely patients. There's so many lovely patients.
The way in which Ray has come back to work, it's a credit to her. And she's turned sort of like more of a positive out of this negative in terms of how she's getting on with what she does.
No, I'm really proud of her. She enjoys it as well. I don't know, she fits it all in.
In Essex, police officers have been attacked and doused in petrol.
I remember thinking, what the heck's going on? What am I meant to do now?
Backup has arrived to scenes of chaos.
There was quite a large crowd, even still at that point after the incident had happened, where members of the public were being vocally abusive towards officers.
It was an awful situation to be in, but you just got to put on a brave face and stay calm.
There were quite a few police cars now with officers they were just constantly turning up blue lights.
The situation is finally resolved and several people are arrested. 2 officers are taken to hospital and the rest of the team return to the police station to give their statements.
That was an eye-opening experience. I mean, it's not normal for police officers to take statements from police officers. And to be, I suppose, invited into the mindset of those victims at that time, it was chilling. And I found myself close to tears on several occasions writing those statements. That was an experience that I won't forget.
A team of detectives, including Natalie, immediately set to work building a case.
Watching this footage, it was scary because I knew the people on there. And I saw the person that had done it, and I could see that that person was fully intending to attack these officers with that petrol.
On that day, we had to learn what it was to be a victim. And that experience has made us all the stronger when it now comes to identifying with other victims.
Chief Constable B.J. Harrington is all too aware of the effects incidents like these can have on the officers involved.
I suppose it worries officers and staff. You know, they understand that they know they are vulnerable. They go to dangerous places. They meet sometimes violent, confused, disturbed, aggressive people who are often in distress. So I think sometimes it can reinforce that feeling of anxiety and fear. Equally, you'll see with these officers, it builds a spirit of camaraderie as well, because they do look after each other.
Five months after the incident, the case was in court.
Coming into court is always a daunting experience, even for detectives and officers that come all the time. Throughout the trial of the co-defendant, it was quite daunting because we didn't know what the verdict was going to be.
The driver of the moped was convicted of driving a motor vehicle dangerously. He was disqualified from driving for 12 months and was also fined. The individual who waved the hammer was convicted of possession of an offensive weapon. She received 9 months in prison, suspended for 18. The man who threw the petrol was convicted of 8 counts of administering a noxious substance with intent to cause injury. He was sentenced to 3 years and 9 months in prison.
The judge awarded the maximum sentence that she could for the offence that was charged and for which he was found guilty. And I think that speaks a testament to the court supporting us.
This courthouse is basically the place where justice was sentenced.
If it ever crosses anybody's mind to throw petrol over police officers or emergency workers in the future, all I can say is pack your toothbrush when you go to court. because you'll be going to prison. My advice to you is don't do it.
It is good that we can just show that, yes, we understand what's happened here, but it hasn't changed us.
Today, 3 of the officers are returning to the scene together, getting some closure on the events of that day.
This will be the first time I've gone back to the actual scene of the incident since the day back on the 5th of May.
I went back once, but yeah, it's a strange experience going back. It made me feel like just weird inside.
It's pretty much impossible to drive past it or go past it without thinking back to that day and remembering what happened. You get flashbacks and just remember the things that people were saying and what could have quite easily have happened.
This bit here was the swan song, if you like. This was where he just wanted to stick it back to the police and goad us into engaging with him. At that point, I certainly thought we could all go up like Roman candles here.
It's nice to be here with my colleagues, like to get it spoken through of everyone's perspective, how it affected them, what happened.
Being back here with Matt and Andy has helped me come to terms with what went on here. We've all had to process what happened in different ways.
These guys know exactly what it was like because they were there. They were going through the same feelings, the same emotions. They went through the same build-up that led to the incident and they saw how it came out of nowhere. So coming back here with them, talking through it, we all just know exactly what we're referring to and it's a lot easier to discuss.
It's that understanding, that camaraderie, that commitment to what we do every day that actually resulted in the police chalking this one up as a success. You know, we did manage to achieve our core objectives on that day. We kept people safe, we put away the bad guys, and we made sure that the community returned to normal and nobody else had any lasting effects.
A week later, the team find themselves back at the Crown Court in Basildon. But this time, it's for something very different. They've just received a commendation from the judge for their bravery on the day of the incident.
It's a bit overwhelming, really. Obviously makes you feel very valued with what we do, and it's a real high point to be commended for doing our job. It feels really great.
It makes you proud for the job that you do, and obviously that you are getting recognised for what you're doing. It kind of makes it feel all worth it.
It's a great honour to receive this commendation. It's normally only given to investigative officers, so for an operational police officer to get one, it's a massive deal.
There were other people who helped bring the offenders to justice, and all of our colleagues who turned up in support of us. You know, they deserve a part of this commendation too.
I'm feeling massively proud of my colleagues working it, my work, and just the whole of Essex Police.